Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Welcome to the May 22nd Canaveral Port Authority Board of Commissioners meeting. John, you're up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning. Let's move on to some exciting things now. Big subject today, Disney Cruise Line operating agreement. It's on the agenda for approval. I apologize that wasn't on the agenda when we originally published last week. We added it on Monday. We were waiting for the final sign off from Disney, which came over the weekend. This agreement essentially replaces the agreement that was executed during Chuck Rowland's tenure in 1995. We were just talking about that when I came in. The new agreement will start on June 1st. It's a 20-year primary term with 2 5-year extension options. It will maintain Disney's exclusive use of Cruise Terminal 8, and it adds preferential use for Cruise Terminal 10 when a third home port vessel arrives. The current agreement has a guarantee of 150 calls a year. Under the new agreement, it will increase to 180 in 2023, and from 2024 on for the balance of the term, it will be 216 vessel calls guaranteed per year. We're going to talk about the cost. It's $46.850 million to do the improvements to Cruise Terminal 8 and Cruise Terminal 10, and this will be recovered through a CapEx. Just like we do with Royal Caribbean and Carnival. This will all be recovered during the initial term. I'm going to stop here, and after I finish my CEO report, I'm going to pass it on to Bill, who's going to show you some pictures of what we're doing, and then Mike will follow that with how we're going to pay for it.
Excuse me, John.
Sure.
Just could you just make this one point? You yesterday, or whenever we were talking, you combine these contracts and the length of them. There's a number that the revenues generate. What was that number?
There's a revenue number, but there's financial commitments to the port, and if you look at the contracts, you're over the 25-year term, you're over $1 billion in financial commitments to Port Canaveral. That's huge.
$1 billion. Thank you very much.
I mean, that's actually a lot of confidence in what we do here that cruise lines would make those sorts of commitments to us. So it's really a great future, and I'm glad to be part of making this part of the future of this port.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. It's a pleasure for me to be up here speaking about this project. It goes back about a year that we've been working with a great partner in Disney Cruise Line. My hat goes off to many of our staff, Bobby G., Dave German, Clyde on the operations side. I need to highlight Veronica Narvaez Lugo. She's been my assigned PM on this project and really has done a stellar job over the last year guiding the feasibility study. And really we've found that Disney's very detail-oriented, and we expect that from them. We know that it's going to be a beautiful project when finished. We are certainly excited to get started on it, and a couple other partners that I want to highlight moving forward are in the first bullet of this slide. One is BEA, and Bruno Ramos is here with us today from BEA. Did you do the original design of this terminal, right? Yes, sir. Way back. And so that's one of the agenda items for approval of their design contract, but also Jacobs. Now, many of you know Gary Ledford. He also did the original design of the CT8 pier itself. So we're celebrating those two legacies, the partnerships that we've had not only with Disney, but also with our contractors and our design consultants moving forward on this project. Next month's meeting, we're going to be bringing even more items to you, and after I'm done, Mike Poole is going to tell you how we're going to pay for it all. We've adopted our new CM at risk practice. We're going to select those contracts based largely on qualifications, and we've received 6 submittals. So if you recall CT3, we only got 2 bids. We actually have 6 bids this time, 6 proposals from very qualified contractors. Well, the team will be evaluating the qualifications of those contractors, shortlist them this Friday, and then about a month later we'll get some presentations and some more discussion before we make our final selection. We'll bring that contract to you. The budget's $39.8 million at the June 26th commission meeting. We also are going to bring to you the selection for the passenger boarding bridge contract. It's a jetway style contract. It's just under $2 million. for that piece of equipment. And thirdly, the owner's rep. We're in the process of soliciting an owner's rep to kind of help us through this somewhat new process that we're going through for the CM at risk selection, guide us through the various stages of that GMP price that we'll get from the CM at risk. I identify the proposed budget. You've seen those numbers before. Almost $40 million on CT8. That includes the gangway, that includes the marine works and the building. About $6.8 million on Terminal 10 for that magical $46.5 million, which is part of the CapEx agreement. We do have about an 8 to 9 week shutdown window. I'm pressuring Dave German weekly to give us more time, but late April through early June of 2020, we'll have a shutdown window where we can do some of the more obtrusive work in front of the terminal and then complete the project when the terminal is active. So it's going to be a very challenging project. To give you a few highlights, as part of Cruise Terminal 8 program, we have a almost 7,000 square foot baggage screening building that we're planning. And what this allows us to do is to check bags directly from the airport. You see these trucks that come over to the Disney terminal. Check them here. It opens up some of the space in the existing baggage area building, and it provides even some covered area for commercial stores as well. We have an expanded arrivals hall, so it's a very beautiful rendering. This came from our BA feasibility study. We're expanding this entrance into the terminal. We're also providing some covered areas that connect to the POV drop-off in front of Terminal 8. About 1,200 square foot expansion of the concierge, that is their VIP lounge. Part of this structure right here is existing. It's currently a corridor that provides access to the current jetway style gangway. We are expanding it and kind of squaring it off, and there's going to be a seating area in here for concierge guests. This picture makes this ramp look like an external ramp, but this is juxtaposed inside the terminal. This is an ADA compliant ramp that provides that fairly low maintenance vertical transport that we need for debarking guests coming off the ship going into the first floor baggage handling area. We have a new jetway style passenger boarding bridge that we'll be bringing back to you in June, and we're expanding the second floor seating to about 1,000 seats. Currently, I think they have about 386 seats, and they do literally wonders, no pun intended, they do wonders with managing the people coming on the cruise. However, they have had instances where they identified they need more seats. And then, as I mentioned, we're extending that POV drop-off area here in front of the terminal. It's going to be built to match the existing vernacular of that existing POV drop-off area. We're adding about 541 feet, which is about 24 cars. Then on to Cruise Terminal 10. More minor, relatively speaking, improvements, but very key to making Cruise Terminal 10 a Disneyfied terminal that can be Disney one day, Norwegian, or another user another day. We're going to start with what's identified in pink here, A17, which is an expanded entrance landing. We have an existing landing coming from the garage. We also have an existing landing, a much larger one that comes from the main bus loop. We'll be connecting those two so that if guests are coming from the garage and need to merge with the line going into general boarding, they can do it in this area using this landing, and they don't have to mix and mingle inside the area that has stanchions queuing for passengers before screening. We're also adding a revised concierge area for DCL guests, and that's represented by A15. About 307 seats will be in there. We're updating the internal seating, about 720 seats, so we'll still be just over that 1,000 seat mark. New entrances, so existing entrance for general boarding is A16. This will be dedicated for the concierge with dedicated ticket counters or staffing locations. And general boarding will now switch to A13 for boarding of the vessel. We'll have a new mooring dolphin as a part of the marine package, some minor dock work, infill as well. And as I pointed out in some of our briefings, this is the core jurisdictional boundary, and the curved line is the current west turning basin circle. So we're working with Ben Borghi, the pilots, to make sure we can modify that turning circle, and we have their buy-in. And through Bob Musser, we've reached out to the Corps to start to work the fairly expedited but still 9-month process to get the Corps jurisdictional boundary adjusted. New dockside restroom for the dock workers. We're taking an existing restroom. We're going to put a door through the exterior wall and provide exterior only access to that restroom for dock workers.
Excuse me, Bill. How many
Yes, sir.
feet? How many feet are we talking about there on that adjustment of that line?
And I think it's about 100 feet that we're needing to adjust that line. But the turning circle, I think, was only about 50 feet. We're adjusting the turning circle. I'm kind of looking past Bob at Ben Borgie. I think it was taking it from 1725 to 1650, so 75 feet.
So are we sweating there, or are we okay?
We're going to be okay.
Thanks.
So the pilots have they've been with us through this whole process. We also were looking at modifying the same core jurisdictional boundary, but up for, and this is an unrelated project, but for North Cargo Berth 8 pier extensions as well. So we look forward to that project. We'll be needing to modify the core jurisdictional boundary. So we're handling it all in a very comprehensive way with the Corps. And to cover the new dockside restroom, there is a rendering of the new facade of the terminal. It's a very nice feature, very nice terminal. We made great progress with Disney over the course of the year, incorporating all of their wants and desires, helping to right-size the budget. And I can just say that moving forward, I really feel very strongly about the team we have in BEA, in Jacobs. The group is very excited about this new method of onboarding the CM at risk sooner rather than later to help us through that value engineering process. It's going to be a successful project across the board. And now Mike's going to tell you how we pay for it.
Thank you. So for the $46.4 million project that we've committed to from the financing, the major revenue that's going to be generated here is going from 150 calls to 216 calls. So those extra 66 calls, that's new revenue that flows down to the bottom line for us, that Disney will be paying through port fees, and also cruise passengers pay us when they use our parking facility. So in addition to the revenues from the extra 66 calls minimum is what John was referring to as the CapEx fee. We call it, it's in the contract itself that you see in your package. It's CCRC, it's a capital cost recovery charge, but it's a CapEx fee. It's reimbursing us the cost of capital that we're going to have to incur for either borrowing the money or not being able to invest the cash proceeds in investments, so lost investment revenue there. So those two items added together will be providing the revenue pledge that we can that we'll use to finance the terminal. From a sequencing standpoint, the first item that on my side of the house that'll be coming to the board will be in June, and that's a reimbursement resolution. The board approved that prior to us doing the financing for Cruise Terminal 3 as well. But what this allows us to do is when the board approves this resolution, any expenses we incur from the date of that resolution up until whenever we borrow the funding, we can reimburse ourselves. Now, how are we planning to finance this? What we'd like to do is the same, similar to Cruise Terminal 3, which is 2/3 borrowing, 1/3 equity investment, as I call it, but that just means a cash investment. On the 2/3 borrowing, the bank loan, we'll be looking to issue that in late 2019 when Bill and we get a good number on the terminal, and from the berth itself, we know exactly how much we need. Around that 46.4 million is the target that we think we're going to actually land on. But we put out the loan, the RFP for that, probably the October, November timeframe, coming to the board, say in December. For that, we're looking at about a 15 to 20 year bank loan. It wouldn't exceed the length of the agreement. The 1/3 cash, we would use our existing line of credit to act as bridge financing, and then we would pay that off. The plan would be in fiscal year 2021, 22, and 23. So that's it as far as how we're going to plan on financing it.
I'd like to pull, I'm going to pull 1C, 1D, and 2B. That is the Disney, basically the Disney package, if you will. Commissioner Allender. Moving on, I pulled 1C, 1D, and 2B. And I think we've already talked about this, but it's a very historic contract. The old Disney contract, I guess, went away, and this is a brand new contract. And so if John would like to speak any more about that, I think that this is something that I'd like to pull these large agreements and make sure that we memorialize it by all saying, by all voting verbally. So great job to staff. I know that I think Bill said he sat in on 39 meetings with Disney for this, give
Plus
or
or
take.
minus a few.
So good work on that, and it's very important that we work with our port partners to keep investing in our future, and this is a great step in the right direction.
Thank you. I think the one thing I would add, we started discussions back in January. Bobby and I were going over it this morning of 2018 is how long we've been working on this project. So it's great to finally bring it to the board for approval. Both sides are ready to move it along, and it's one of the things I will say is it's a 20-year agreement. By resetting the clock, we get a longer term on great partners like Disney, and coupled with our Carnival agreement, we've got two of our largest cruise partners on long-term agreements now, which really is a tremendous benefit for this port on a long-term basis. It's a long-term commitment that we know they're going to be here, and these are huge financial commitments for public companies to be making. So happy to answer any specific questions if you have any.
Any more discussion?
John, would those be a basis for negotiating long-term agreements with other cruise lines as they come up for renewal?
Absolutely. What's happening is the industry, as I've said, is changing. There's about 130 ships coming in the next 7 years that have to be deployed somewhere, and I think our strategy now is pretty well in place. That there's no need to be out trying to drag people in here. They're going to come. It's just a matter of time. So what we need to do is position ourselves so that when they do come, we're negotiating on our terms for our port. So I think this is a great baseline.
That's why I refer to it as the gold standard of future negotiations with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
It is worth noting that we are using a slightly different contract construction development agreement or method, if you will. And I look forward to working with Jacobs and BEA as we move forward. And I think it's going to be an exciting project, and Bill's doing a great job on that. So
if I could add, I think it's also exciting that as we go forward with the CM at risk concept, that we've got 6 potential contractors to do this job, which is better than our prior record of only having 2. So I think this is a positive way forward.
Agreed.
okay, do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve item 1C on the consent agenda.
So 1B and 2B.
I want you to list all
Just
3
your
there,
whole-
Jerry.
okay.
1D and 2B.
1C, 1D, and 2B.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
No opposed? Motion passes unanimously.